I wonder if this is going to go like this, or you're just going to get sick and hang up on me after about like 5 minutes. So this is now the podcast.
Okay.
And I just wanted to begin by assuring you that you are safe.
Okay.
That everything is okay. It's just you and me and the world.
Well, I was all right until you said the world was involved. Now I think I'm having a panic attack.
Yeah, okay, I will give you that one, yes. But you know, this is our time. We can do whatever we like with. This is our space to be creative and to say whatever we want to say within reason.
Probably mostly dick jokes.
Now actually you bring me very neatly there to the rules.
Okay.
I have a long list of rules. Well, a medium list of rules. A modest list of rules. Because I was thinking about this, right? I was thinking the other day about podcasts.
Yes.
And the internet.
It's a big topic.
Yeah, and I dislike it.
You dislike the whole of the internet.
I'm uncomfortable with how comfortable we are with podcasts as a medium. There are too many.
Too many podcasts.
So do you know what I thought?
Burn all the podcasts.
Yes! And make another one.
Make another podcast, but burn all of the other ones at the same time as making this one? Or we make this one and then we burn the other ones?
I kind of thought ours would be the first on the fire.
Right. So we're making our podcast, burning it, and then almost like using it as kindling to burn all of the other podcasts.
Like a sacrificial podcast.
Right.
Or I kind of like kindling. That's quite good. Yes, kindling. Yeah. That's a nice creative word.
It's a nice woody sort of word.
A good woody sort of word. Now, unfortunately, once again, I have broken my own rules.
So they're almost like avant-garde rules they're rules that are designed to be shat on, essentially.
I despise that summary.
Well, I mean, like, don't hold back your feelings or anything.
I very much had the same thought that we should do an avant-garde podcast. And then I realised, fuck that. Because that has probably already been done. And therefore it would not be avant-garde. So, do the opposite. Don't do an avant-garde podcast.
So we're doing an incredibly mainstream podcast.
And not that either.
Okay. I don't even know what this is. I don't know why I'm here.
Pioneers don't have it easy. It's not a comfortable position to find yourself in, you know, treading on virginal ground, as it were. Virginal or virginal? Virginal ground.
Virginitudinal.
What does fallow mean?
I don't know. It means you have a fallow period in crop rotation, which means you're not doing anything, I think.
Okay, I need to put this on the running order. We need to have a crop rotation episode.
Right.
I'm just going to add it to the list.
Are we going to have episodes on every part of the GCSE geography syllabus?
I think, so we don't pigeonhole ourselves, I'm just going to call the episode Fallow. And hopefully in 36 weeks, we will remember what we meant by that.
Okay.
The podcast rules go as such. No personal details.
Okay.
That can be interpreted in any way you wish. In fact, I will run through all of these rules because you may have a lot of criticisms. So let's save them to the end. So, no memes, no catchphrases, no references, no alcohol, no jokes, minimal laughter, no swearing, no camaraderie, no cliches, no rules, no anti-cliches, no cliches, and no. And I've already spotted a problem here. The no rules rule is both a cliche and an anti-cliche. So I feel awful. In fact, I'm gonna have to get rid of this. No rules is gone. I'm keeping no cliches and I'm taking out no anti-cliche. No. I'm trying to think if this structure itself is an anti-cliche.
I think you can get too bogged down in these things.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to take out no cliches and I'm going to leave no. And I'm going to leave 15 blank.
Because there is no Rule 15.
Ah, that's a cliche.
Oh, fuck. Was it a reference as well?
Ah, this is difficult. This is really difficult. God, no one says how difficult podcasts are. This is... I mean, I know I'm a pioneer and everything, but...
I genuinely remember 0 of those rules.
The big one that I'm very firm on is no jokes.
No jokes.
I dislike them.
You dislike jokes as a whole.
I don't think we should try to be funny.
Okay.
Because it's just... I want to use the term gauche, but I already hate myself. So...
Yeah, I hate you as well.
Yeah, so I think instead I'll just say that I think jokes make me feel bad.
just on a spiritual level.
Just on an emotional level, because they...
Or a physical level? Did they make you like physically sick or anything?
A little bit. They're like lies that are meant to be socially acceptable.
Right.
And I get uncomfortable about being told I'm meant to be okay with something.
Okay.
Because very often I'm not.
You're very often not okay with things.
And that is actually the title of one of our episodes that is coming up in week 14.
Week 14.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the other thing. I thought about what could a podcast be?
How basic do you want to go with this?
Well, I thought blank slate.
Okay.
Blank slate time. What could it be? And from that, I wrote down a list of words.
Right.
And those words are going to be our episode themes or topics every week until the list runs out.
Okay.
And I thought that was an interesting and potentially, again, I don't want to say original, because that's a cliche.
It is a cliche.
Yeah.
You broke rule whatever the fuck by doing a cliche, so...
And you swore, so that's breaking number 8.
Ugh. Okay, fine.
I could make a really very pretentious avant-garde reference at this point about the structure of our show, but I feel like we don't have that much credit. Any attempts to rise above any of our limitations, I think, is a mortal sin.
A mortal sin.
As far as this podcast is concerned. So I'm actually going to write that down in number 12, which we left blank. So, never attempt to rise above our limitations.
Can I just say at this point, I genuinely have quite a strong feeling that I didn't wake up this morning. I'm confused. I'm getting angry. I mean, if I'm going into like everything that I'm feeling, I'm also hungry. I think under-caffeinated as well.
This is an exciting time. And, those are all powerful, constructive emotions that can be used, to forge something new. There are no rules apart from the list I just read off that vastly constrains us. Like, the reason why I thought this would be a good idea, I watched a certain green screened video of a certain well-known figure who I won't name because we're not allowed any references, but essentially his point was, today is the day.
Can I point something out to you?
What?
You just referenced a meme. So, just rules broken all over the shop.
I think what this non-meme entity was trying to say...
You can't just say a thing isn't a thing and that makes it okay by the rules.
You are correct, but I cannot think of an eloquent way to get around this problem.
Okay.
And so I'm refusing to rise above my limitations.
Oh my, it's just so many rules broken.
I have a feeling that rather than stringently adhering to these rules, we should use them as a kind of, like a foil to our attempts to be... not even interesting, just element of friction.
So we're not trying to be entertaining, we're just trying to be.
Yeah.
Is that a cliche?
It is a cliche, and so that's why we've sort of taken that and we're rubbing salt on it. If you could see my hands, I'm rubbing them together right now.
I saw it in my mind.
This is where we're painting with words. This is a very vivid idea. And that's what I think our listeners get from our podcast. I don't think they should be listening, but they are. Bloody hell. I mean, Twitter's lighting up with support for us already, so...
My Friends Reunited account is just going insane right now.
Are you comparing the use of Twitter to the Friends Reunited phenomenon that used to exist in our youth?
We never really experienced Friends Reunited, I don't feel. I feel like we went free webs, MySpace, Facebook, pretty much. I think we've managed to do a reference that 3 of our millions of listeners will get.
This actually brings up an interesting philosophical question right there, is if people don't understand the reference, is it still a reference?
Or is it just some words?
Yes, empty, meaningless words. And actually, that is a phrase that made me think of podcasts. I thought, if other people can have meaningful podcasts where they talk about meaningful, interesting, exciting ideas and topics, we should do the opposite of that. You feeling me?
I'm still a bit lost about what you're looking to do with this podcast. I was very blindsided when this started. I wasn't aware there would be rules. I wasn't aware there would be philosophy, which I am staunchly against. I was only vaguely aware that you were going to be involved, so I don't really know what to feel or think.
Would it be fair to say that this podcast is an intrusion of sorts into your life?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. This is not anything that I would ever like to be doing. It's been forced on me. I feel as though you have used some form of emotional blackmail against me to get me to do this. It's making me very resentful towards you.
But is that enough to make this relatable to our listeners? Because I hope that it wouldn't. So I have kind of got the exact reaction I wanted, which was confusion, befuddlement, annoyance.
Yeah.
Essentially the feelings that our listeners would have at this point, 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
To this conversation that they would be feeling right now. Sort of like they've been shaken down for money they didn't even have.
I feel as if this, the whole experience of this podcast is almost a form of molestation. And I believe that's probably how our millions of listeners will also feel at this stage. They will feel as though you have come into their home uninvited while they're asleep and like stroked their inner thigh. It's an unpleasant feeling. It's making me frustrated and it's making me think less of you as a person. It's borderline groping or in audio form, I think.
I had a great turn of phrase the other day for a feeling such as this. It is akin to a splash of cold water on the balls.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I'm going to write that down. That actually sounds really good. Splash.
Oh God, is this another episode title now? A splash of cold water on the balls.
I think that's too hard hitting and possibly engaging, so that's out immediately.
Okay.
That's not, no, right away there are possibilities of genital humour, some sort of story of this happening to someone, you know, things that we don't do here, things they're just not.
So it's too, I believe the word is titillating.
There we go, yes. And even that word alone, I think I may have to censor from this podcast because it's too interesting a word.
Oh no, I would say that word is borderline pornographic at best.
Yes, and it's interesting you bring that up because pornography is obviously something that the internet quite likes, unlike us. And
is that unlike us as in we don't like pornography, or unlike us as in the internet doesn't like us?
I'm going to say the latter. Okay, let me give you something to grasp hold of here. Let me give you some substance about what this podcast is and why it is the way it is and why I am the way I am and why the world is the way that I see it.
I cannot wait for this.
What does the internet like?
Porn.
Porn.
Fighting.
Bacon.
Verbal abuse.
Yeah, that's a good one. Derision in many forms.
Not being a social justice warrior.
Misconstruing one another's opinion. J-law, is that how you say it? J-law? Have I got that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. I always think of Jude. Oh, that's another reference. I can't. Sorry. Yeah, I have to cut that. GoPros. Beard oil.
Yeah.
Reddit.
Yes.
Let's plays.
ASMR.
Oh yeah, I hear that. Is that a sexual thing, or is it just a hobbyist sort of interest?
It's sexual in the way that a dog licking the inside of your ear is sexual, by which I mean hopefully not at all.
I mean, it's a niche.
It is a niche. Do we judge niches on this podcast? Is that one of the rules?
No.
We don't judge niches.
I am adamantly against the judgment of niches. Because who are we?
Sorry, was that a genuine question? Do I have to answer that?
Well, it is both a genuine question and a rhetorical statement. Who are we to judge the niche amongst us?
I don't know. I've lost all sense of self.
This is what I was trying to get across. The internet likes things that are relatable.
Okay.
So that's been done.
That's been done. That's old hat.
Yeah. So let's not do that.
Not relatable.
Not relatable.
Is that the name of the podcast? The Not Relatable Podcast?
I thought that was a little on the nose.
Does this podcast have a name?
It does. The name of the podcast actually comes from a recent piece of correspondence that the two of us shared.
Yes.
Where I think the only detail about this podcast that I shared with you was a phrase, quality is irrelevant.
I do remember that.
And from that, I thought, this podcast needs a name. Why don't we call it Quality Irrelevant?
Quality Irrelevant.
How do you feel about that?
I like it.
Ah, that's a shame.
Is it not actually called that?
Well, I have registered the domain and got the Twitter account and got the YouTube account, so it is kind of locked in already. I was hoping for kind of mild disappointment.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm not going to be ashamed of the fact that I liked it. It was two words that I enjoy the sound of and the feel of as they come out of my mouth hole.
That is the same reason why I chose it. I also liked the fact it lacks grammatical sense.
It does.
But only nearly. Which, and that way of describing it doesn't make grammatical sense either, so I feel it was very apt.
It was apt.
The only other name of the podcast I could think of was the Unremarkable Podcast.
I like that less.
Yeah, I like it less because it's too clever, right?
Well,
it's too...
I was worried because I do like it less, but I thought the way that this weird experience has gone, that might make you choose it over the other one.
Wow, we've really entered a game of verbal chess here. I mean,
We have.
Wow, I mean, this is a labyrinth of...
one-upsmanship. If that's not too harsh a word.
Yes. I literally have no way out of that. That is checkmate.
That genuinely, I felt like that was almost an attempt at ASMR. It didn't make me feel any kind of good feelings, but the attempt was there at least.
I'm adding a rule 13, no ASMR.
I think that's probably a good rule.
I mean, this is to stop ourselves. I mean, this is a safety net. No doubt, in an attempt to not do ASMR, we will end up performing ASMR.
We are going to go crazy with the ASMR now that rule in place.
Oh, okay. So in that case, I am removing the rule no ASMR, which means there will be no ASMR because it is not in the rules.
I feel like that is a safe choice for both us and our millions of listeners.
Honestly, I feel like we've just dodged a bullet. So at this point, I thought, because I'm still explaining the conceit to you here. We haven't even, we're half an hour in, and I feel like you've got a thread that is attached to a loose jumper that you are slowly...
If anything, we have done a pre-introduction.
Yes, a pre-introduction, I would say. But that's a little... it's not entirely truthful because it's not like they're getting an introduction, so...
Oh, okay.
It's just kind of a lot more of this.
It's just sort of this, but different words, possibly.
God, I mean, it may well be the same word. Who knows?
Well, if we were really trying to make it non-relatable and unremarkable...
That's no longer the name of the podcast.
I know, and quality irrelevant.
There we are.
We could just stitch this part of the podcast together with itself and just put it out twice.
In an attempt to create something... not that people don't like, because that has far too much commitment.
I also feel like doing something like that is sort of deliberately bad or unlikable is a bit cliche.
Yeah, and in fact, this actually comes up quite neatly in week 33 in an episode titled Nemesis, where I talk about everything I wanted this podcast to be, finding out it already existed, and then cognitively turning against it and putting everything, all my hopes and my dreams into a box, and took the box and threw it off a little cliff in my mind and thought, right, don't need that. I'm going to, in a very healthy way, just attempt to construct an entire identity that is in opposition to what I wanted to do.
I like that metaphor.
Is it a metaphor?
It's something. It's a collection of words and thoughts. Is that a metaphor?
A collection of words and thoughts.
I don't know the definition of a metaphor. That's where the problem comes in. I say words, I don't really know what they mean.
I think it would be dishonest if we thought we did know what they mean. Because there are intelligent people on the internet who do podcasts where they talk about very intelligent things at length, things they know a lot about. And then there are people who create podcasts where they talk about very intelligent things that they know nothing about. We are neither.
So we're talking about unintelligent things without knowing what they are.
That is almost beautiful.
Almost beautiful.
Almost. Because if we were lesser men, what you would have said was, we therefore must be intelligent because we don't know about the unintelligent things. You see?
I mean, my nose is bleeding quite heavily right now. I don't know what's happening. I feel like there may be some form of carbon monoxide leak in my flat. I feel dizzy and as though my insides are trying to crawl out of my nose.
That is a very... I was hoping for some kind of physical response to this, because this podcast could be life-changing.
It could be.
Not for us.
Oh, no, never for us. God, no.
I mean, we're dead men. Dead men walking or talking or whatever. Dead men who are sat and extemporizing at length.
Yes.
My life is over. I've done all I wanted to do. Everything I wanted to accomplish is done.
I mean, you have buildings named after you.
This is the other thing why I wanted to create the podcast, is wanted to distance us from our other work.
Yeah,
I felt
from
like
our fame.
Yeah, yes. I thought it was time to venture into a new medium, away from all our other work and our other projects and all the things that people know us for, and try and do something different and new, but isn't that new and isn't that different.
I can't argue on any particular point. It's an intelligent move to retain some form of anonymity through this podcast. I mean, I don't particularly want my legions of rabid fans kicking down my door and lynching me because I've stepped away from my other pursuits.
Your true calling.
My true calling, to record some words that, as we have established, are unintelligent, and yet we still don't understand what they mean.
I would like to use an entire monologue as the subtitle to our podcast, but I don't think iTunes allows that many characters. So I think I'm just going to use the subtitle that you've already come up with, a collection of words and ideas.
A collection of words and ideas. That I have my reservations about that. It sounds a little bit too highbrow.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I don't like that at all.
Sounds like some sort of collection of poetry by a man who wears a turtleneck jumper underneath a tweed jacket.
How about a disc collection of words and ideas?
That is better.
It's still a little bit... We need to come up with a name for that idea you just expressed, like a word, like a single word or a name or a title.
For which idea? The poet or all those other words that you wanted to put in the subtitle, but iTunes won't allow?
The poet figure.
The poet figure. do you just want to create a name for this poet figure?
Yes.
Right. I am going to say his name is... The thought that is immediately coming to my mind is a word that is not even a name. I would like to say that his name is Cleves.
Cleves. Now, do you spell that with an EA or an EVE?
It is one of those things that I can't remember what they're called. It looks like an A and an E squished together.
I'm going to have to cut that bit. Cleves. Okay.
Cleves.
I think... I do want to use it as the episode title, but I feel that is... I know I'm using the same word again, but that feels like a Cleves move to me.
I have to agree.
Yeah, instead, I mean, initially I was just going to call it The End, but I deleted that immediately because, one, that violated like about 15 of the rules immediately. And also, as it being the first podcast, I thought that was far too Cleves-like.
It was pretty Cleves-ish.
So instead, I just went with the word trap.
Trap?
Trap.
I feel like that is appropriate because I feel like I have been trapped.
So it is literal and not metaphorical, and so I think I can use that.
Yes.
Would you like me to go through the list of topics that I have for us?
Yes, of course.
I think I'm just going to read them as a straight list, and you can respond afterwards, I think is probably the best way.
Shall I remain silent as you read the list out?
Unless a burst of inspiration takes you and you have to express yourself, because I wouldn't want you to not be able to express yourself. This, of all places, I mean, is this not the place?
Well, that's incredibly fair and gracious and not at all Cleves-like of you.
I feel like you're saying the opposite in that, but I can't quite tell.
Well, I often say the opposite of things.
Is the nose blood back in your brain yet?
No, it's, there's a puddle.
You should really get something to, like, stuff up there just for the duration.
I think it'll clot eventually.
So, the topic list goes as follows. And remember, these are the titles of all the episodes to come. As we think of new ideas, they can go on the list, and the podcast will only end until we get to the end of the list. The list goes as such. Trap, autumn, brackets, fever, scared, types, journal, non-binary, precision, happy, old, experiment, production, important, scum, business, no questions, Sesame Street, crisis, can't hide, aphorisms, madness, siren, what can't I do, funny, inconsistent, steady on there, copy, terrible, brackets, people, angry, churn, correspondence, nemesis, calm, abject, censorship, fallow, harrowing, and finally, specifically, Domhnall Gleeson.
My favourite of the list was, I believe, steady on there.
Week 26, that is going to be a good week.
I can feel it already. It's week 1, and I feel week 26 is going to be a good one.
Well, don't jump ahead of yourself, but yes, when I thought of that one, I thought that is definitely going on week 26.
You could have essentially given yourself the day off after that one.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was tuckered out after the first 3. I had myself a little nap.
I don't blame you.
It's taken a long time to write. This could be, you know, our seminal work, our magnum opus, as it were.
It could be.
Except it can't be, because that's too much of a commitment. So it can't be that. It's got to be like, I don't know, I guess we're like the... who's not very good?
If the original Star Wars trilogy is George Lucas's magnum opus, then we are Howard the Duck.
I'd say we're more like the Burbs.
The Burbs... I think there's a bit too much to take away from the Burbs.
Could we be the Dean Koontz?
You've made a reference there, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Are we the Dean Koontz of podcasts?
I'm going to say yes, with very limited knowledge of Dean Coots and his, or possibly hers, because we don't judge on this podcast, of his or hers work. Can I just say another thing about the list that I like?
Yeah, okay.
I enjoyed the fact that it seemed to be made up of every single word in your vocabulary that isn't swearing or graphic sexual imagery.
I tried very hard with this list. I mean, this really took a lot out of me. I mean, this was a good 5 or 10 minutes of my day.
You could do anything in that time.
We've got to take some time to indulge in something new and exciting and bold. And dare I say it, heroic.
I don't think you'd be overstating it if you said heroic.
That is the inspiration that felt I needed to make this. You know, we had to do this because there are lots of reasons not to do things.
I find literally thousands every single day.
And so you could convince yourself, oh, I shouldn't record a podcast. What's the point in recording a podcast? Why would anyone want to listen to a podcast? But instead, you can embody that spirit that we all are attracted to, that we all love, the spirit of the have-a-go hero. As in the one who stands up and decides, now is the time, I have the power to change things. It just takes one, and then the flood of inspired people will follow. It's like you are the man kicking down the back door of a home that you believe to be on fire to save a family. And I am the man who plunges a biro into the neck of a choking customer at the restaurant. These are powerful ideas. They capture the mind. They capture the imagination. They're enrapturing. And that is what I wanted this to be. This to be that visceral, raw, creative force that doesn't necessarily lead anywhere exciting, but my God, does it turn heads.
Like if you saw, say, a goat giving birth to a small lion.
What, just a sort of reality has been turned on its head. I can't properly sleep at night because what I thought was true is no longer the basic laws of the universe that made me feel safe and grounded have been overturned, and now there is just a strange, mewling creature covered in amniotic fluid, sort of wheezing and gasping at my feet.
Also, it makes you slightly concerned that the apocalypse may be rapidly oncoming. There's something in one of those religious books about some animal giving birth to a different animal, and that meaning that Satan's gonna show up and do his thing.
I won't lie, some people who will remain nameless have likened me to a kind of Lucifer-type figure just in terms of their lives.
Yeah.
The foil, the turning things over and making things harder.
Yes.
And just when you thought you were comfortable, things are suddenly wildly unbalanced and off kilter in a way that, as you stated, could threaten life.
Could be a sign of the end times.
The end times, or the fall.
The fall.
The fall, which it means autumn in American.
It does. Autumn is a topic that is coming up, I believe.
It's next week.
Next week, week 2.
Week 2 is autumn. We should say episode 2, because I haven't set a strict schedule for this. I was thinking that maybe we could churn out like about 20 hours of material to just look like that we've been working hard on this. But we'll go with week for now. I mean, people don't know. You know, I don't think we've given any time-sensitive information, like anything that locates this in history. I mean, we've not mentioned the death of Alan Rickman or David Bowie or Lemmy or anyone, so...
The only real clues that we have given is that people know that this was recorded after the internet was invented.
But do they, though?
Well, I feel like they're going to have a pretty good idea of it.
I think there's a lot of assumptions there.
Well, I think you're not giving our listeners enough credit by assuming that they wouldn't realise that the internet had been invented.
I don't know. I mean, I only found out this morning.
Is that true? You found out about the internet this morning?
That's not quite true. I had a very strong inkling.
I mean, you've had a lot of opinions about the internet for someone who only just learnt about it this morning.
Oh, it was all prejudice up until now. This is all speculation. I mean, I always considered, the internet to be like the Higgs boson or something. Like, it would be a good idea. It fits in with what we know about the world at the minute. But is there any evidence of it? Do we know? Can you show it to me? Can you show me the internet? Has anyone ever got some internet in their hands and said, can you see it? Look, it's there right in front of you. Why don't you understand that this is the internet? Why don't you believe me? Look, it's a video of a cat. It's clearly coming from space.
Those exact words were said to me by a man on the street once, but he was wearing a tinfoil hat and he did have exposed genitalia.
I kind of thought that the man with the tinfoil hat would be our target demo.
Yeah. I mean, just to give you just a quick update on the nose blood situation, it is now congealing on the floor and yet still somehow coming out of my face.
I guess you could kind of have nose blood slippers if it congealed in the right shape.
You could. I don't know how effective they'd be as indoor footwear.
I wasn't thinking for indoor use.
You're thinking for outdoor use?
Yeah, and in bed.
And in bed. Blood slippers in bed.
I'm right, I gotta write that down. Blood slippers in bed. That's fucking incredible.
It sounds like some sort of old timey like meat dish.
It does sound like a very sort of you could in theory see that on a pub menu somewhere.
Yeah, blood slippers in bed.
Now, the final bit of correspondence that we had is I allowed you the idea of potentially preparing something for this podcast.
I have prepared a short tale of misfortune.
I'm going to have a little pass out nap time and you can tell us about the thing that you've brought for us to share.
This is an autobiographical tale of misfortune. It's a cautionary tale, if you will, of something that you shouldn't do in everyday life. So there is a popular retail outlet known, it's a high-class establishment known for many different knickknacks and things like that. It's a shop called Wilko. I had an experience in a branch of Wilko recently. This was... I don't want to give away the time that we're recording this. It was just before a recent religious holiday. I went into a branch of Wilko and I massively let myself down. I find myself in Wilko because they have such a wide variety of products in there. I tend to end up buying the weirdest combinations of things that you could possibly put together. The most recent time I bought 2 champagne flutes and a bottle of extra strength drain cleaner.
Sorry. Continue.
And upon reaching the checkout, I placed these items on the conveyor belt. They went through, they were scanned by the rather, I'm going to say pudding-like woman behind the counter, and she looked at me with a look of, I think this man is going to kill himself. The only thing I could say in response to this look was, I'm not going to drink it. Because, as we have established, I am an incredibly eloquent and confident man. She looked at me as though she was pressing some sort of silent alarm, but I don't think there is a silent alarm for insane suicidal people. I think it's mostly just for robbery. I walked out and genuinely considered drinking some drain cleaner out of champagne flute just to dispel the sense of unease and discomfort that I felt from the whole transaction. And that is my autobiographical story of regret and misfortune.
I do have a rule that is not on the rule list that says no segments.
Okay.
However, I'm going to amend that with
1 segment.
Phil is allowed to have segments.
Okay.
So, rule 14, no segments, brackets, Phil is allowed to have segments. I think at the very least, this podcast could be used to, as an autobiography for you. I think, you could weave a tale of your various sort of goings on in your life without being too specific, of course, because we don't want them to find us.
I do have a lot of regret and misfortune in my life.
I think that could be a regular thing. But not regular because we don't do regular things here. But, by regular, I mean just do one every week.
I'm slightly concerned about it, that it might be slightly, I want to use the phrase Cleves-ish.
I think if we treated this more like a confessional, like I'm the priest behind the mesh, listening in as you unburden yourself.
And you're not allowed to do anything unless I say that I am planning a murder.
And there are special, priest laws protecting that, which I don't know the name of, so I'm just going to call them priest laws.
I think priest laws pretty much covers it.
Yeah, well, as an expert in priest law, I think this would certainly apply.
Okay.
I mean, I did like the inclusion of Wilco.
Yeah.
Because Wilco is one of these spaces that I'm still not decided about.
Okay.
As in, I don't...
Like the internet.
Yeah, I don't understand.
No.
Where am I when I'm there? It is a weird... There's fluorescent lighting. As you said, there are pudding people. They've got toilet seats on display next to the pick and mix.
Yeah.
Everything in there is cheap, but it's more expensive than you think it should be. I always get lost in there. Like, you go right to the back, and then suddenly bicycles just appear from nowhere, and tires.
I do also have similar feelings about another store that perhaps isn't quite as well known as Wilco. I know that you personally are aware of it. It is the store known as Claes Olsen, but it's sort of like a miniature version of IKEA. I find that it has everything and yet nothing useful. And somehow every time I go in there, I come out looking like I'm planning to murder someone.
Do you just have random tools and...
There's a lot of duct tape. There's occasionally tools, lengths of rubber hose. It's just the sort of general paraphernalia of the murderer.
I have to admit, I've never seen quite so many hatchets for sale in one place. Homebase might have one, but they had 4 or 5 options, different price ranges, trying to hit different demographics. You got your budget option.
Yeah.
They're more kind of shinier metal with the black handle, fairly small, not really going to cut much with that. Right up into, your Gerber or Gerber, solid, heavy, could really hack through a sternum, human or otherwise, is what they said on the label, I believe.
It's sort of like a one-stop shop for murderers, serial killers, I'd say drug kingpins as well. But the problem that you find with a one-stop shop for all sorts of criminal vice is that it's very easily traceable if you get everything from one place.
So you've got a source from... you got to have a list of contacts.
Yeah. I'm slightly concerned now that I have made myself sound like a murderer. I feel like I'm coming off as too knowledgeable about how to prepare for a murder.
I think that's old hat.
Being a murderer.
Well, that. But no, the idea of coming across as a bit of a basket case on the internet, that's been going on since.
And to be honest, I think also talking about murder on podcasts is a bit old hat. I believe there is a fairly prominent podcast that involves a lot of the old murder talk. I think we should just pop on the rules, no murder talk.
No murder talk. But I would argue that it's no murder talk other than now. There we go. I would argue that people who discuss not so much murder, but the disposal of bodies and body parts at length on a podcast are exactly the type of people who would not commit these crimes, because you spend so much time thinking about it and fantasizing like what you would do, you know, how you would get out of it. But I mean, it's all just harmless make-believe and wish fulfillment. We would be considered tourists at best.
We are very much amateurs.
We don't really know much about hatchets. Not enough. Not enough to really...
And also, you would never hack up a body with a Gerber. They're just not sturdy enough.
Oh, you need something with a bit more heft.
A bit more heft.
Is it heft or heft?
I believe traditionally it's heft, but I like your way better.
Heft. I think heft is an actual word. I'm going to see a kind of streamer or flag used either as a signal or a masthead for ornament or to indicate the direction of the wind to aid in steering.
I feel like that would just be cumbersome in a hatchet.
And not really the correct usage of the word, but I think we got away with that one.
I think we did, by really like shining a light on it. Like some people might say too much.
Despite how this comes across, you know, this episode has been a consistent hole. And I don't mean like a pit that you fall in and get trapped.
I wouldn't have disagreed with you if you'd said that this podcast was a pit. I feel you said the podcast is called Trap. A pit is a type of trap. I'm just trying to make connections here and trying to stem the rapid flow of blood that is coming out of my nose.
I mean, I was going to liken the podcast to like a harsh torch being thrust in your face. Yeah, and I don't mean in a pit. Like when you're in a pit and there's someone standing at the top of it, shining a light in your face,
telling you to put various lotions in various baskets.
I'm gonna have to cut that, but you know, we'll get sued.
I was more referring to murder than referencing anything.
Well, still, yes, if there's someone hopping up and down, laughing, clicking his heels, slapping his knees, shining the torch in your face, saying, I've got you, you're not getting out, you're not going anywhere, you're mine now. Rather than that, I mean, like, when you're in the cinema or the theatre, and an usher who's trying to get people to their seats comes in and clumsily casts the beam across your eyes as you're trying to focus, doesn't really apologise. It's kind of like that. That's what this podcast is.
I followed 30% of that.
Well, as you would in that situation. So yes, it's apt.
So it just creates a feeling of sort of, why are you doing this to me? It's ruining everything that I have hoped for from this experience, and it is making me want to sue a cinema chain.
Phil, I know you don't write copy, but that is a perfect summary to go on the episode description. You'll probably get a credit somewhere, some sort of like a... I mean, this podcast is not a podcast of means, you understand, so you might get a stipend of some such.
A per diem, if you will.
Isn't that Latin?
It is. I believe it is also in reference to some sort of daily rate, which I highly doubt I'm going to get from this.
That was optimistic of you, yes. That wasn't ever going to happen. I wonder how hard it's going to be to edit this.
I have no idea where you're even going to start.
I don't know either. This is a fucking minefield. I've taken us into a minefield.
It's called Trap. A minefield is a sort of trap.
You don't forgive the person that takes you by the hand over a minefield. That's not a forgivable act.
You just sort of lose your legs and move on with it. Probably harbour some sort of festering resentment.
I mean, are you really going to say, look, I know you didn't mean to, but you did take all of us onto a live minefield.
You took a tour group. We paid money to the travel agent for this, and you took us across a minefield.
I suppose if anyone listens to this ever, that is exactly what it is.
What is paying a travel agent to take you across a minefield?
Exactly, but you didn't so much pay them as they approached you in the street, demanded money. You open up your wallet to give them whatever coins you have, and they spy a £20 note in there and then proceed to talk to you quite seriously about that £20 note that you're not intending to give to them.
That's exactly what this is like.
Except, with people's time.
Yeah.